Hello again. This particular message comes close to home. This is a very personal, almost a private message. It's things that I normally would never share. That's how personal and private it is. But it might be healing for other people to hear what I got to say about it. It might benefit somebody. This information might even cause trouble on my channel. To be banned, to be censored, to have a strike against it by the things that I talk about. Hopefully not. But this is a subject about spanking and discipline, especially as a child. Childhood memories. I was born in 1964. I'm 61 now. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was a whole different culture back then. Childhood trauma. Feelings of resentment changed to feelings of acceptance. Yeah, back then it was common practice. Strong feelings of tyrannical parents, terrorist parents, punishment, feelings of dread, fear, shame, and pain. Full surrender of the will, vulnerability, nowhere to escape, nowhere to run to, the pain and the tears. As an adult, we can look back at that. We can consider where we came from and learn and grow from that. Consent versus slavery. There's actually adult relationships surrounding corporal punishment. Beatings and spankings and BDSM fetishes, and I'm not really into any of that. I'm not talking about that really. Corruption versus morality. It gets into some deep stuff. Healing massage versus pain and shame. And what we need is the love of God in our minds, our hearts, our souls, and our bodies. We need the love and goodness of God. Love for one another, love for our families, love for our parents, love for our children. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land, which the Lord your God gives you. The first commandment with promise in the 10 Commandments. The joy of freedom and of expression and being. So I'm expressing some of the thoughts that I have about childhood spanking scenes. This is a little erratic. It's not in order, but I'm just going to share a few memories. We had this little brown house in Cuba, Illinois, and I was in a family of 5 kids. I'm the oldest. I got 2 brothers and 2 sisters. There's 5 of us. And we were making a lot of noise. We were screaming and yelling and just having a good time. And my dad, he was asleep in the bedroom there. He would work at night and he would sleep during the day. He was a 3rd shift worker. And so he woke up and he used his belt and he spanked the other 4 kids that was in the next room. And I was hiding in another room. And he had to go looking for me and find me because he knew there was 5 of us and he could only find 4 that he spanked. So when he finally found me, he gave me a much longer double, triple spanking than he did the other 4 because I tried to hide from it. And I was naked. And during the spanking, I was just crawling on the floor, trying to find a place of escape because the pain was excruciating, agonizing. And he just kept, pounding me with that belt. And I was screaming and crying and, it was, I can't remember my age at that time. It might have been 4, it might have been 6, it might have been 8, but whatever age I was, I still remember that traumatic event. Let's see, I felt abused. I used to resent my dad for it. but later I forgive, I accept, and you know, I just feel that my parents did the best they knew how. And I felt like they overdid it at times, but I just have to trust it was for my best good. I mean, at least I survived. We went to a family's house in Carthage, Illinois. We went to visit an aunt and uncle and their family, and we were playing around in a creek nearby where they lived, and we got kind of wet, and a little muddy, and so we got spanked for it. And I remember being naked and spanked very hard, and it was very shameful and embarrassing to be around other people and to go through that. And I had a sheet wrapped around me, and I was walking around so ashamed and embarrassed. And we had a house in Havana, Illinois. And it was the last day of grade school, and we had a substitute teacher. And I called her a fat woman because she was pretty big, you know, and she got highly offended at that. And she took me down in the basement and put soap in my mouth and made a phone call and told my parents that I had called her, you know, a very offensive name. And so when I got home, I was stripped naked and leaned up against the couch, and I was spanked by my dad, and then I was spanked by my mom, and then I was spanked by my grandpa. I was so ashamed and embarrassed, of course, the pain and the tears. And there was a lot of I felt tortured, very tormented, and suffered a lot from that. And embarrassed, ashamed, felt abused. There was another time in the Havana house where what happened was my brothers and I were laying on the floor. My brothers and sisters were laying down. We were taking a nap. My dad was sitting on the couch, and I didn't see him watching me, but I took a speck of dirt and I put it into the ear of my brother. And my dad saw that, and he got up and he took a toothpick and he carefully dug that piece of dirt out of my brother's ear. And then he took me into the bedroom on the bed, and I was stripped naked, and he spanked me very hard. And the buckle of the belt actually tore my flesh, and I had a bloody tailbone. And I came out, you know, crying and stuff, and I showed my dad my bloody tailbone area, and he didn't seem to care much about it. I felt abused, honestly. So yeah, we had another house in Cuba. We had a scene where I opened the door a little hard and a little fast, and it slammed and it banged up against a piece of furniture, a stand table, and it made a nick in it. And my dad got mad at it. He was sitting on a couch. He made me come over and lean over his lap, and he was reading a book or something. After about 10 minutes, I got kind of tired, and I started to get up, you know, get off his lap. So then he took the belt, and he went on ahead and whipped me. You know, I cried and stuff. And then he commanded me and told me to go over there and kiss the damage on that stand table, you know, where it got nicked, to kiss that. Almost like I'm sorry, you know, I did that. One time my brother and I was in a local grocery store, and we stole some little things, little toys or something. And the sales clerk called my dad on the phone, so he came over and took us home, and he laid us on the bed, and we were in our blue jeans, you know, and he spanked both of us to tears, you know, for stealing. And my dad, he was a hard spanker. I mean, he was severe about it. He spanked us hard, I gotta say. So many times I was spanked as a child with no explanation. I didn't know why I was being spanked, you know, many times. And so one time as a child, I counted 3 whole days that I never received a spanking. And I thought, wow, I broke a new record. I went 3 days without a spanking. That's how it was back in those days. And I used to feel a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness. But I changed that to forgiveness, and that they just did the best they knew how. You know, I became a Christian, and I love my parents. I don't hold anything against them like that. And I think I was around 14 years old or 15. And we was at our house in Cuba and at my grandpa's house. And my mom was spanking me with the belt. And I just turned around and kind of laughed at her because I just felt like it wasn't really hurting me. I was fighting with my brother, and that's why she wanted to spank me and discipline me. And so she backed off. I think I was around 16, sitting around my brothers and sisters at the table eating breakfast, getting ready to go to school. And I don't know what triggered it. My mom was really angry and upset and nervous, and she said, "You kids can just go to hell." And she started slapping me in the face with her hands, slapping me in the face. And finally I stood up from my chair and I started slapping back toward her face. And she got very upset. She said, "I'm going to tell your dad when he gets home." I think she forgot about it. Nothing ever came out after that. Maybe she was too ashamed and embarrassed to tell him her failure to discipline me. I don't know. Yeah, I love and forgive my parents. It was the culture of the 60s and 70s at that time. It was common practice. Also, there was many school paddlings. I lost count of the times that I got paddled in the principal's office. One time, another guy, we were commanded to reach over, bend over, and touch our toes, or at least our knees, but the idea was to touch our toes. So we were kind of on a tipping balance. And he'd raise that paddle up and, wham! And one of my school companions, he'd take a paddling and he'd go, "Oh!" He did that 3 times, 3 swats. He'd lean over and take a swat, and he'd go, "Oh!" Like that. It was really humorous, But anyway, I got my turn too, and I received many times in the principal's office, swats. When I was younger in Havana, I think I was around 6, 7, or 8 years old. There was an old lady there, about my grandma, looked like, and she put me over her lap and paddled me with her hand. And so, I've been through the gambit with that stuff. Yeah, there was a music teacher there in the Cuba school, and I was one of my school friends was fighting with me, trying to punch me, and I was trying to slap me, and so we got called into his office, and he had a big old paddle, the Board of Education, and he paddled him first, 3 big swats, and then he paddled me with 3 big swats. A little later in the day, another school student came and asked me how that felt. And I told him it was like love taps. I was used to being spanked hard, my family and home, So that school friend, run back and tattled behind my back, and told the music teacher how I described the paddling. And the music teacher told that guy the next time it won't be love taps. And so he came back and told me what the music teacher said. So I hoped I never got paddled by him again, which thankfully I didn't. But the other guy that got paddled with his 3 swats, he went home and he showed his parents his butt, and he had big old blisters, water blisters on his butt. So the next day they took him to school and went to the principal's office and called the music teacher in and showed him his butt. And so there was a big discussion on paddling students and abuse and how far to go with that. And see, back in those days, there was no hotlines, call 800 and, and call for abuse. And they didn't have that back then when I grew up in schools and stuff and at home. And so childhood traumas, we survived the best we were able to. There's other people, their childhood traumas are far worse than mine. Put mine to shame, Mine is, and other people, they would call the police. They would report it as domestic violence and put my parents in prison, or kidnap the kids and put us in a foster care, under the other people's home or whatever. So I just wanted to share that with you, and we just need to trust God through our life, Right now in Gaza, there's a lot of Palestinians are going through sufferings with bombings, bullets, shootings. starvation. Food is available, but just to go there and get the food, and on the way home, you might get shot dead. That's happened to many of them. And a lot of suffering in this world, far worse than what I went through. And I think we should pray for each other. And I think we should try to help one another. And I think we should try to make the world a little better place for having lived in it for a while. I think we should be a good Samaritan and try to help one another, encourage one another, pray for one another, try to relieve suffering wherever we can find it. I did work in nursing homes. I did work in hospitals. I did private duty care. I worked as a nursing assistant, as a nurse, a licensed practical nurse, as a registered nurse. And I just wanted to help people as I could. And I'm retired from those things now, so now I teach and preach as I'm able to. Well, God bless you, friends. Thank you. Thank you for listening in.